Good morning, C3. It is Monday morning. I am Mr. Melton. I'm going to read Chapter 7 from We're Not From Here. Again, I know you guys are all ahead of me. I'm trying to catch up. But I wanted to read along with you because that was kind of the point of our book club. And if you've heard this chapter before, great. That'll help you actually kind of dive a little bit deeper into the analysis portion. The questions that we had for this chapter were, one is a prediction. At the dinner party, we learned that there are no longer any of the Nug species on Choom. What do you think happened to them? And question number 2. During the dinner party, the chief servant, Zuri, tells Lon and Isla's mom that people should not tell jokes and that art is banned on planet Choom because it causes emotion. And that's on page 64. What does that make you wonder? What does that kind of tell us about the Zuri culture? They don't like art or jokes or things that inspire emotions or strong feelings from people. I think that's an interesting insight into the Zuri culture, which is one of the big, again, themes of this book is really, this is an immigration story. But this is humans as a species immigrating to this new planet and the challenges that entails for them. So here we go with Chapter 7. Alien dinner party. It took more than a day, but the chief servant of the executive division, whatever that was, finally accepted Mom's invitation. The next evening, we hosted the most important dinner party in human history. Or at least, it was the most important dinner party not held on Earth. Our guests were 5 giant mosquitoes, 1 little green werewolf, and a 6-foot-tall marshmallow with arms. Again, visualization. They keep adding all the descriptions of those characters. A, because they're fun, and because it's supposed to seem foreign. It's supposed to seem unsettling. It's supposed to be imaginative and yet different. 4 Zuri soldiers came too, but they weren't there to eat. They were just there to electrocute us if we did anything violent. Another Zuri showed up early to set up the food, which we were thrilled to see included enough Ororo rations for the humans too. One of the Zuri also brought video cameras, 3 baseball-sized drones that floated in the air, recording everything that we did. May I ask what these are for? Mom said to the Zuri worker who was launching them. They will record footage for Choom's television news. Choom has television? It was our first inkling that there was TV on this planet. But the workers ignored all of our questions about it, no matter how politely we asked or how much we smiled when we did. The 5 Zuri guests were Leanie, the gruff-sounding official who'd been with us in the spaceport hangar, the chief servant, who looked much older than the others, with dead spots in his compound eyes, and his greenish-brown skin faded almost to gray, and 2 Zuri that were shorter than the rest. The short one turned out to be the kids. My name is Huri, the smallest one announced, standing opposite me. I was hatched at a similar time as you. The translator app gave her a pinched, crabby-sounding older lady's voice. Hello, Huri, I said with my biggest smile, hoping the Zuri knew that human smiles were meant to be friendly. My name is Lan. I am happy to meet you. The smile didn't seem to help. Huri reeked of sour milk fear. I am Iru, the second shortest one told Isla. His voice sounded so much like a cartoon frog that I almost giggled at the sound of it. I am also very close to your biological age. I'm Isla, my sister told him, trying to smile, but not really pulling it off. In the 2 days we've been on the planet, she'd been acting even more withdrawn and depressed than she had been on Mars. The only time her gloom had lifted for even a few minutes was when Leanie had fed us the Ororo food. It is nice to meet you. We have asked Huru and Iru to attend this meeting as company for the younger humans, Leanie explained, and to help us determine how well they might fit in at Choom School. Thank you so much for coming, I beamed at the Zuri kids. We are very honored to have you. All I got in reply was more fear stink from Huri. After that, Leanie introduced the Ororo and the Crick to us. They were both government officials of some kind. We apologize that our translators cannot yet convert your speech into a form we understand, Mom told the giant marshmallow and the little green werewolf. Rum, 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 rumbled the big Ororo in reply. We all looked to Leanie for a translation, but she didn't offer one. Eventually, Mom stopped waiting and just changed the subject. Was no one from the Nug species able to attend? Mom asked. We had looked forward to meeting them as well. At the mention of the Nug, The Zuri adults all rubbed their wings together in that nervous-looking way we'd seen Leanie do before. The little crick snapped its razor-sharp tooth mouth open and shut, and the Ororo's thick eyelids lowered in a way that looked sad. "There are no longer Nug on planet Choom," Leanie explained. "Oh, I'm so sorry," Mom said. "I did not know that." There was an awkward silence. "Perhaps the children would like to go outside and make sport," Leanie suggested. Iru, the older one, held up a curved disc that looked like a frisbee. "I have brought a Suswat disc. Do you wish to learn how to play?" "Oh, we would love to do this," I said cheerfully. As I started towards the door, I heard Isla groan. Back on Earth, she'd never been much for sports. When we walked out the door with the two Zuri kids, a pair of armed guards went with us. I guess they weren't taking any chances. In the time it took us to walk out to the middle of the big red lawn, I cooked up a whole fantasy in my head that I'd somehow become the greatest Suswat player Choom had ever seen. My amazing athletic skills would win over the entire planet, and they'd let the rest of the humans come to Choom in the hopes of finding more Suswat stars like me. The fantasy lasted until Huru and Iru took to the air, flying straight up to hover about 10 feet above our heads. Iru tossed the Suswat down at Huru, who caught it, and then looked down at us. "Can you fly?" she asked. "Oh, I'm so sorry," I told her. "Humans can't fly." "Oh, okay." The two of them slowly sank back to the ground. "If you cannot fly, you will not be very good at Suswat," said Iru, hanging his head in a way that made me think he was really disappointed. Can we try anyway?" I asked. Huru shook her head. "It will not be fun. Crick and Ororo cannot fly either. They are both terrible at Suswat." She sounded mean and kind of snotty, and I wondered if it was because of her personality or just her angry grandmother voice signature from the translator. One of the baseball-sized camera drones was hovering at eye level a couple of feet from us, its glittering lens pointed straight at me. I tried to keep the goofy grin on my face, but it was starting to make my face hurt. We stood there, nobody saying anything, and Huri silently reeking of fear, until I finally blurted out, "Thank you again for coming to this dinner. We are very grateful for your kindness." "It was not our choice," said Huri. "We were ordered to come here." "Leanie told us to come," Iru added, sounding a lot friendlier than his partner. "We live in his hive." "Wait, is Leanie a him?" I asked. I'd been calling him her because of his squeaky little girl voice signature. "I do not understand your question," said Huri. "It's like in humans there are males and females. Males are he and females are she, and Iru nodded. "When the male and the female mate, you reproduce, yes? The Ororo and the Crick are also this way. But the Zuri are not. Our only regents are female. The regents lay all the eggs for the hive, and the rest of us are male." "Oh, that is very interesting. Very interesting, isn't it, Isla?" "Mm-hmm." My sister had given up even trying to smile. There was another long, awkward silence. How many people live in your hive?" I asked the Zuri. 3,417, said Huri. "That's a lot of people. Is there a long line for the bathrooms in the morning?" Huri and Iru just stared at me. Then I remembered the Zuri didn't go to the bathroom. "I'm sorry, I was trying to make a joke." "People should not make jokes," said Huri. "Everyone agrees jokes are not polite. They cause emotion." "Oh, I'm so sorry," I repeated as my stomach did a flip-flop. "I didn't know that." "It is true jokes are not polite," said Iru, "but some people think it is all right to make them sometimes." Huri's head swiveled to stare at the older Zuri. "Who thinks this?" "Oh, I do not think I know any of them personally," said Iru, "but I have heard some people think this." "Those people are not correct," Huru insisted. "Making jokes is never all right. Everyone agrees that this is true." I definitely liked Iru a lot better than Huri. Did Leanie say you go to school?" I was surprised to hear Isla open her mouth without being told to do it. "Yes," I replied. "We both attend the ICE Interspecies Academy. It is the school where you will go if you are allowed to attend school." "Oh, I would love to attend school," I said, nodding my head excitedly. "I enjoy learning things and meeting new people." The Zuri just stared at me and I cringed a little bit inside. I was trying too hard. Isla took a deep, shaky breath. "If we went to your school," she asked in a trembling voice, "would the students spit venom on us?" Both Zuri drew their heads back. "Oh no," said Iru. "That would never happen. Making disagreements in that way is very bad. No one would ever do that to you." They did do that to us," Isla said, "when they swarmed us at the spaceport." "That was not a swarm," Huri whined. "It was an angry gathering." He and Iru were both rubbing their wings together. which I figured was Zuri body language was, "This conversation is making us very uncomfortable." What's the difference? "If it was a swarm, it would have been much worse," Iru told me. "But even so, everyone agrees what happened at the spaceport was very bad, and nothing like it would ever happen at our school." "If you are peaceful, there will be no problem," said Huri. "At ICEE, all 3 species study together without disagreements." "And what happened to the 4 species?" I asked. "There are only 3, Iru told me. The Zuri, the Crick, and the Ororo." "But when we first talked to people on planet Choom, there were 4. Those 3 plus the Nug." Huri and Iru stared at each other. "I have never heard of this species," said Iru. "It does not exist," says Huri. "It did once," I insisted. "Did you hear the adults? They were just talking about it. And I saw one in a video. It was really big and slippery with this huge hole for a mouth, and it moved like this." I did my best imitation of a slithering Nug, and it screeched like this. "Squee!" Huri backed away from me in what looked like horror, and his fear smell, which had been gradually fading away, suddenly came back. But Iru didn't back away, and I caught a whiff of different kind of smell coming from him. Unlike the gasoline anger and the sour milk fear, this one wasn't gross. It was actually pleasant. It had a sweet, almost tasty odor, like a fresh baked donut. Huri shook his head. "You are wrong," he told me. "If there was such a species, we would know about it." "That movement you make is very strange," said Iru. "Can you make it again?" And before I could get either answer out, the front door opened, and Dad called out, "Kids, we're sitting down to dinner now." I tried not to stare at the Yuru plant flopping back and forth under the Crick's hand as she pressed it against her plate to keep it from wriggling across the table. We'd all been served. There were 10 different colors of Ororo food arranged in perfect cubes on my plate, and I couldn't wait to dig into them. But we had to wait for the elderly chief servant to finish his speech about how important immigration was to Planet Choom. All 3 of the drone's cameras fixed their lenses on him from different angles as he spoke. "Just as the Crick welcomed the Zuri to Planet Choom 1,012 years ago, the Zuri and Crick together invited the Ororo 196 years ago. Our unified government welcomes all species who seek refuge here. In return, we insist only that the refugees are peaceful and do not cause disagreement. Today, we welcome the Mafoon Persad Human Reproductive Unit as temporary guests while we consider whether the human species can satisfy these conditions." Then it was Mom's turn. She stood up, faced the chief servant across the table, and the drone cameras all turned to record her. "We thank you from deep in our hearts for your kindness in welcoming us to Planet Choom. Following the darkest chapter in the history of the human species, your civilization is a light that has drawn us across the galaxy at your invitation. We only wish to live among you in peace and to continue to contribute in a positive way to Choom's society." Sitting next to me, the Ororo-sized chairs were so wide that we were sharing one. Isla cleared her throat and shifted nervously. She'd agreed to sing for the group, and her big moment was coming up. "An example of the many gifts we offer," Mom continued, "my eldest child, Isla, wishes to sing for you. Music is one of the many art forms that humans..." "Yee-hee!" The chief servant's wings beat rapidly as he rose several inches up off of his chair, interrupting Mom in a harsh whine. "Turn off the cameras!" Along the far wall, the Zuri in charge of the cameras flitted over to the control panel and hit a button. When they did, all 3 cameras fell from midair, clattering to the floor. "I'm so sorry," Mom said quickly. "Have I said something that offends you?" The chief servant folded his wings, settling back and into his seat, but the tone of his whining stayed harsh, and the smell of gasoline spread across the table. "You wish to force art upon us? We want nothing to do with art. Not yours or anyone's. The only purpose of art is emotion, and emotion is poisonous. Choom is a civilized society. We have evolved beyond such barbaric displays." Mom was so stunned that the smile actually left her face. "With all due respect," she said, struggling to keep her voice pleasant and cheerful, "we believe that some forms of art and emotion are very positive. In some cases, they represent all the best that is in a species." "Nonsense!" Mom somehow forced the smile back onto her face. "The Zuri who first invited us showed great interest in our art. They wish to..." The chief servant interrupted her again. "Those Zuri were fools, and they no longer lead us. And even now, they agree that emotion only leads to chaos. In recent years, we have succeeded in removing all emotion from our society." The gasoline stink was rolling off of him. I wondered how he could possibly say there was no emotion in human society when he reeked of anger himself. Mom called him on it. She never stopped smiling, but her voice turned hard. How is it that you claim to be free of emotion when hundreds of your people attacked us in a rage? That was your emotions. The humans caused that. The whine of his voice was getting much louder. Isla grabbed my hand on the table and squeezed it tight. When I glanced at her, she looked as worried as I had felt. With all respect, Mom replied, lowering and softening her own voice, we did nothing to cause that. All we did was step off a ship. Your very presence caused the emotions. And now you want us to open our workplaces and schools to you to stir up even more emotion? The smell of anger was coming from more of them than just the chief servant now, and there was fear mixed in with it. I looked around at the Zuri, wondering if any of them might puke venom on us at any second. And what we do, if they did. Your government agreed to this, Mom gently reminded the chief servant. You invited us across the galaxy to work and study amongst you. We believe your people's anger and fear is based on a misunderstanding. We are only 4 humans. We have no weapons, and we pose no threat. If you let us enter your schools and workplaces, we believe your people will see for themselves that we are peaceful. The chief servant stared at Mom with those dead, spotted, compound eyes. Then he turned to Hyrule and Eru, sitting on the far side of me. What say you, children? What would you think if these humans attended your school? They both started to answer at once. I do not think they should, Hui began. That would be interesting to us, said Hyrule, talking over his classmate. The presence of a new species would be educational, and the human children are quite weak. They cannot even fly. We are in agreement that they are no longer a threat to us, aren't we, Huri? Of course, everyone agrees, said Huri in a low, defeated whine. I would like to bring up one of things that Aiden very much noticed. He posted an answer to one of the questions on Class Dojo, and he did kind of notice how the Zuri always kind of phrase everything as everyone agrees, everyone agrees. And I want you to think about that during this book. Is there ever a situation where everyone agrees? How does this tie into what we can kind of figure out about the Zuri culture? Why do they always feel the need to say everyone agrees? I think it's interesting plot to kind of watch as we continue to read through this book. The chief servant turned to the crick, who had gotten tired of waiting and had started to eat her wriggling vegetables. Her eyes were on her plate, and she didn't seem to be listening to the conversation anymore. From the crick perspective, what is your opinion about working alongside humans? The crick looked up. Stray bits of tentacles slapped the outside of her mouth. Realizing she was being called on, she quickly swallowed. Gazur, 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 gazur. Nobody translated the crick's words for us, but the chief servant reared his head back like the crick had told him what he wanted to hear. As they watched him, Leanie and the gruff-sounding Zuri both rubbed their wings together nervously. The human has nothing that is useful to us, the chief servant whined. You are not as strong as the crick, you are not as clever as the Ororo, or as civilized as the Zuri. If we allow you into our workplaces and schools, it will only be a waste of everyone's time. With all respect, said Mom, until we try, how can you know for sure? All we ask is that you give us a chance, the same chance you guaranteed us before we crossed the galaxy for 20 years to come here. If the promises of your government have meaning, we beg you to honor them. Please give us a chance. The old Zuri picked up a glass of gray liquid that sat in front of him. He stuck his tube-like mouth into it and drained the whole thing with long, long suck, making a loud slurpy noise at the end. Then he banged the empty glass down on the table. The anger smell was starting to fade. Very well, he said. The United Government honors its agreements, no matter how foolishly they were made. You will be assigned jobs that suit you, and your children may attend school. But everyone agrees this experiment will fail. As soon as it does, we will leave you, as soon as it does, you will leave this planet forever. And with that, he stood up and flitted out of the house. The others followed him, although the Ororo tipped its plate into its mouth and ate its whole meal one bite before standing up and waddling out. A minute later, the only non-human left in the house was Leanie. Congratulations, he said. I will send pods in the morning to take the children to school and yourselves to your new workplaces. As I wondered if I should change Leanie's voice signature in my translator to make him sound more like a guy now that I knew he was male. All the Zuri was male, I thought. Weird. Dad piped up. May I ask a question? Of course. It is my job to answer your questions. What did that crick say about working alongside humans? Leanie rubbed his wings. She said that you seemed quite weak and helpless, and that if either of you caused problems, the cricks working with you would simply bite your heads off. Dad laughed nervously. That was a joke, right? It was not. Everyone agrees jokes should not be told. They cause emotion. My stomach did a flip-flop. For a planet that everybody claimed was peaceful, there seemed to be an awful lot of violence on Choom. And so far, almost all of it was aimed at us. That is the end of chapter 7. Again, go back over our questions that we were looking for today. A prediction. At the dinner party, we learned there are no longer any Nug species on Choom. What do you think happened to them? Predicting and looking forward is a great way to help kind of better understand and comprehend a book. During the Zoom dinner party, the chief servant tells Lon and Isla's mom that people should not tell jokes and that art is banned because it causes emotion. What does that make you wonder? What does that tell us about Zuri culture? And I'd like to add on Aiden's little comment. Be thinking, why do the Zuri always say everyone agrees? I think it's definitely a worthwhile topic to continue to continue to think about as we read forward. I will see you later for chapter 8. I hope you're enjoying this windy, sunny Monday. See you soon.